complete automation. Okay, I mean, it will take hundreds and hundreds of years, and it's just not possible. But you know what, we can do so much to go into digital information, and we'll talk more about that. But why do we need to go digital other than efficiency and many other factors? Because this is the information the consumer needs to make decisions, real-time decisions on efficiency. All good?
Okay. Hello everyone. Welcome to the Actionable ESG Talk series brought to you by AKFI Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute, the world's first nonprofit industry consortium committed to bridging the gap between ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. My name is Isabella. I'm the co-host of this talk series, together with another co-host, Manuel, and our special guest today, Afamia. Hi, Manuel. Afamia, thank you for taking the time joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. And thanks to this talk series, we get to bring together great minds to discuss the current state and the future state of sustainability, digital transformation, and ESG. And before we started, a little bit about Afamia. Afamia is the Director of Infrastructure and Environmental Health at Nocturne LLC. And Afamia has over 20 years of experience, including 12 years of classroom and academic research. She's also a peer-reviewed author who translates science to inspire and heal people. And her latest book, called The Second Draft, under the pen name called Mia, the subtitle is How to Lead and Inspire Your Own Evolution. And we had a little discussion about it and can't wait to hear more about this book. Very inspiring and timely offered. Thank you again, Mia, for being here. And usually we started with a relatively broad question to hear your insights and your perspective on your definition of sustainability.
Thank you, Isabella. And my first lecture in the university is 2 rules for my students to remember: that Mother Nature always wins. And the second one is sustainability is an economic principle, not a science one. We were taught sustainability starting from the School of Business, not the School of Sciences. So when it comes to sustainability, it has evolved over the years. 30 or so more decades ago, when we first kind of started teaching it in the School of Economics, we started teaching it about basically sustainable development and leaving some for our future generations. And sure enough, it caught on. So a few decades of that, and then it caught on politically, it caught on as being green. So when it came to the School of Science as going green, a lot of politicians started talking about it, but a lot of companies started going green. They started monetary incentives on, oh, this is a cleaner product, this is a better product for the environment. And from there, we started talking about the triple bottom line, which is another economic principle, which is people, planet, and profit. And soon enough, that going green of profit, we've realized that without the people and the planet, we just cannot continue doing so. So that sustainability evolved from going green to triple bottom line to the circular economy. So companies started figuring out that somebody's trash might be somebody's treasure, and that we are running out of valuable resources, and that we need to create this type of circular economy. And this is kind of where we're at right now. And finally, last but not least, this all developed into ESG and governance and keeping that triple bottom line in a structure of environment and science and governance and so forth. So this is a real brief history of the development of sustainability over the years.
Well, thank you for sharing the brief, really. You are the first, actually, in a long series of interviews now that you point out that started as an economic principle, and that's important. And maybe, when you look at the next question, because we're looking at the economics of Industry 4.0 now, which contains, of course, digital transformation, not only sustainability principles. And you mentioned the fact that actually sustainability also became not only an economic principle, but also a political movement and the marketing movement with the green label. My next question will be, sort of what your thoughts about how we can bridge these gaps between sustainability, environment, society, and how we take this into actionable public policy at the end, because there are a lot of trends now in Europe and in the US, California is more specifically, to update the policies to include sustainability goals.
For me, the answer to that is access to information for the common public, whether it's real-time information or decisive information, whether it's forecasting weather or understanding what's going on with your flight delays, or how much you're spending in water, or how long your trip is going to take you from point A to point B. And the access to that information has to be through a digital framework. So when I decided to do today's topics, focusing on utilities of the future and digitizing utilities, a month ago we talked about this topic. No one was talking about ChatGPT. I am not talking about artificial intelligence. In the infrastructure industry, we are barely digital. Okay, a lot of communities don't have even digital meters. We're doing everything manually. And in no way in the engineering and science and utility business are we ever going to go to complete automation. Okay, I mean, it will take hundreds and hundreds of years, and it's just not possible. But you know what? We can do so much to go into digital information, and we'll talk more about that. But why do we need to go digital other than efficiency and many other factors? Because this is the information the consumer needs to make decisions, real-time decisions on efficiency, on time, money, and planet. So that digital transformation is going to be the key that connects the ESG into practical everyday living, that as a regular citizen consumer, I don't really have to think about it. So that point, eliminating the I don't have to think about it, is the best part, where it becomes an automatic thing I do as part of my everyday living.
Oh, very interesting. Last night I was reviewing another interview, and I found out that the European community has planned for 2030 to be the digital decade, the next 10 years. And one of the targets is about 80% of the population should have basic digital skills, and about 20% being really skilled in STEM and really being able to promote or move further the economy of Europe. So a little bit going back, you started to talk about the state of infrastructure in the US, maybe in Texas, where we both live. And there are a lot of discussions about public and private partnerships. Do they have a place to play? What do you think should be their place?
So PPPs, public-private partnerships, are just going to have to be the tool we need to accomplish this digitization and this cooperation. So in terms of our infrastructure, our utilities, when I wake up in the morning, I don't think, here, I'm going to turn on my faucet. Is my water going to come out of it? Am I going to have electricity? I don't think about these things. Is the road going to be safe for me to drive today? So, but somebody 24/7 is thinking about these things. And these are our public utility engineers and administrators and so forth. Unfortunately, they are so overwhelmed. There has been a shortage of manpower in these industries. And again, as much as we can go digital, you cannot replace this manpower. It will help, for example, meter readers, if it becomes automatic, that's helpful and so forth. But there's a shortage in people. There's a shortage in funding. We take it for granted. We just, pay our bill. Even then, because of the state of the economy right now, people are having a hard time paying even their bills. For example, many utilities during COVID stopped billing people for many months, even a year. So our state of the utility affairs is really overburdened, and there's someone 24/7 sitting, thinking about keeping your lights on, keeping your water on, keeping your roads safe, keeping your terminals flyable, keeping your internet working. So unfortunately, if you look at our U.S. infrastructure report for 2021, the grade was a C minus. Okay, so we are not there yet. We need help, and this help is going to have to be through these public-private partnerships, because if the federal government can, or the state government can support with the funding, the private entities can support with the man-force. And this is where we need mostly their help, is they can bring the expertise from different disciplines, because to keep your infrastructure safe and running, you need a multidisciplinary team, and you need technology adaptation, real-time changes that happen really, really fast, and we just cannot keep up.
For people that don't live like us in Texas and they don't know, but the Texas power grid pretty much collapsed last year during a cold spell, to the level that a large percentage of people were left with no electricity for a whole week during a winter storm, unusual for Texas. Also, we can talk, if we talk about economics, we can talk also about the unintended consequences. For instance, in California, where the utility is public, and after the electric lines created fire hazards, now the utility, if there is a warning about a storm coming, they shut down the electricity, so they cannot be blamed or have economic, consequences from putting fires. And as you mentioned already, Mia, without electricity, we don't have internet, we don't have running water. We cannot have really an economic activity. So there are many companies that depend on 24/7 utilities, such as fabs that fabricate semiconductors and so on. So thank you for bringing forward the sort of there is no sustainability without really a strong infrastructure, and I think you brought really important points about that. And I think you highlighted already, but maybe you want to emphasize a bit the digital transformation in public utility. You already mentioned the lack of human resources, but is there anything else missing?
Yes, and on the event in Texas, people might dismiss it. Oh, it snowed in Texas. The whole state shut down. We had over $80 billion in damages, because we are just not built to sustain those. It was a 100-year event, that snowstorm we got, but it was also coupled with another 100-year event, which was the pandemic. So here in Texas, we called it Snowvid. And, people started selling T-shirts, I survived Snowvid, because unfortunately, other than the $80 billion in damages, there was over 200 deaths, of people who died because of that freeze combination. And the actual number, they say, is actually closer to 700. So we learned a lot about resiliency from that extreme weather event that happened to be with a pandemic. And there was a lot of, there was a Senate bill that was passed also in the state of Texas to weather, to be more prepared, Senate Bill 2 and 3, weatherizing the power grid, and so forth. So we're looking for digitization to help us be more reliable in how we deal with these situations, whether it's emergency response or daily operations. And some of the examples in daily operations include account usage, customer service. I'm an environmental engineer, and I have a hard time understanding how much water and electricity I use. And I do all the math and I do all this. So we're just trying to make it easier. Maybe I can just look at my watch and know, hey, I used way more than I need to this month in water or in electricity. Okay, so account usage, customer service, safety warning, hazard warning, forecasting of erratic weather to your location, right? Efficiency. So a lot of the work I did at the university in terms of research was trying to understand what we call the low-hanging fruit of efficiency, whether it's water or electricity. And basically, what is the easiest way for us to cut down on usage to help the environment, okay, to use less? And you'll be surprised, some of these efficiency measures, they can be implemented by simple changes, but you have to measure to manage. And without a digital infrastructure, you simply cannot measure. And if you cannot measure, you cannot manage. It's like when you're on a diet. If you don't know how many calories in you need, if you just don't have a measurement for that, you're not going to lose weight because you don't know how many calories out you need. And if you don't know how many calories out you're exerting, you don't know how much you can compensate for that in calories. So in terms of efficiency, digitization is very important. Communication, okay? Communication cross disciplines through digitization is very important. Whether I communicate through numbers, whether you communicate through alarms, whether you communicate verbally or audio visuals, we need this multidiscipline communication. And whether we're working in the office together or at home or on the field, there needs to be some sort of hub for communication that the digital environment helps us out with. Other than weather predictions and customer service, education, awareness. It's funny because you mentioned in the beginning when we were talking about the School of Sustainability and Economics, and you talked about STEM. What I've noticed that in certain classes, I've seen non-majors in science take classes that are about data infrastructure, utility management and administration, and environmental sciences. The new generations coming up are actually interested. They have a wide range of knowledge that is STEM related, even if that's not their work area, because they understand that ESG applies to the financial institutions, to the infrastructure institutions, to the business institutions, and to their social institutions and value system. So that education and awareness could be one way in which the digital environment helps us send out infographics, send out education campaigns, and so forth. Safety mechanisms, again, we talked about early warning, predictions, communication immediately. I mean, here in Texas, we've even had hailstorms. And if you've been caught in a few, they are very scary when you have like baseball-sized ice just coming at your cars and windshields. Insurance liability, assessing risk, things like that. It's going to become very important for companies and so forth. And last but not least, when it comes to the digital environment, it's about cyber security. Even though we're not digital right now completely in many utilities, we are very, very vulnerable to cyber issues. Whether these cyber issues is this unknown email that somebody clicks as part of your staff, or whether it's something more serious or more dangerous. Cybersecurity has to be assessed, and the only way to assess it, even if I'm not digital, but don't I have an email? Don't I have, certain mechanisms in my institution? I become vulnerable. So unless I'm knowledgeable and connected in terms of cybersecurity, I cannot protect myself from somebody who is more connected and more knowledgeable than I am. So last but not least, it's going to be cybersecurity that we're going to be paying a lot of attention to in terms of digital transformations.
Thank you very much. You touch on so many subjects, so many things, but you don't need an email account even. You don't need to have any tools or anything connected to the internet, and still your water, your electricity, the gas stations where you put gas in your cars, in the car, they depend on the internet now.
Yeah,
they are exposed to cybersecurity attacks. And before moving on, and I know we have a short time today, but I wanted to highlight first that I know I have two book authors. I'm very lucky today. And I know Isabella, it's more of a social futurist, and she's looking more at the impact of artificial intelligence, which is sort of the next level we bringing now, the internet and the industries and the automation you talk so much about. And in her first book, her first bestseller, she talks a lot about also the generational context, right? The one also you mentioned, Mia, the fact that the new generation of students, and we have number of interns at AKFI as well, they are really concerned about the future of the environment, the future of the society and the social aspects and so on. And we can see their attitude to our governance has changed. The way they see their relationship with companies has changed. And I hope executives and board of directors take notice, because things are changing rapidly. So before I wanted to give also Isabella a chance. Maybe you want to mention something about the future. I hope
Of
it will be
course,
right.
always. Yeah, and I definitely want to leave enough time for Mia to tell us more about your latest accomplishment. We mentioned about it, the book called The Second Draft, a very creative piece of work. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it to end the conversation? And of course, how do you think you yourself and the book, your work, can be part of the future, and how do you foresee what's coming next?
I wrote the book after the pandemic. Academically, we started seeing this. We are way too connected, yet completely disconnected emotionally from each other and our daily lives. And this rut feeling, we had an academic name for it. It was called post-COVID life fatigue. And this is when we experienced a lot of burnout at work, a lot of resignations, a lot of family issues. So that's the book addresses these feelings. And the book is divided into 5 chapters that address you as a whole person in the time of a digital world in a positive way. How to use these for your advantage. First, communication in terms of resiliency. Second, productivity. Third is on your built environment, how your environment makes you feel. Fourth, and I feel that chapter 4 for every parent needs to read and implement with their kids. It's on self-confidence. And our youth is really suffering with this. And last but not least, chapter 5 is on socialization. We are so connected, yet somehow we are disconnected from ourselves. And the book, The Second Draft, highlights you as a person and brings out the second draft of you. And in this digital world, we have so many tools. And I always pride myself in my age group is I've grown up with and without the digital world, and I can enjoy both of it, and I can appreciate what the digital world has changed and done for myself. You need to know how to use it through you and what your objectives are. And this is really what the book is about. It's really to address this post-COVID life fatigue. It's about how amazing you are. And these 5 categories that will help you create the second package, the second draft of you. And that's why it's called The Second Draft.
Amazing. I wouldn't pretend I don't know about the book. We had a great conversation, and I've personally so in love with the content of the book. And this is more for our audience to be aware what Mia, has been focusing on, and her attention in building a more meaningful society in general, infrastructure building as a tool as well. So wonderful. Thank you so much for bringing up this topic through your work work and together today also here at this discussion. Very, very grateful for having you here today, sharing on this topic. And thank you to all of our audience as well for taking the time. Make sure you tuning in every week for a new episode of AKFI's Actionable ESG Talk series, where you can gain new perspectives on how to mitigate risks and create value by integrating ESG and digital transformation. Until next week, goodbye for now. Bye, Mia. Bye, Manuel.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, Mia. Bye, Isabella. And a recommendation to our audience, read both books side by side. I think will be an interesting exercise. Thank you again for participating in today's talk, Mia.
Thank you.